Chapter 2902. When Yin heard that, he hesitated for a moment. His face was filled with unconcealable nervousness, and from time to time he glanced at Yiqing Luo, until Yiqing Luo impatiently kept the smile on her face. He then braced himself and opened his mouth with difficulty. Actually, it's not that there's no way. The simplest way is to smash the puppet into pieces, leaving no room for attack. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Your expression tells me it's not as simple as what you said. There's another, more troublesome way because it's the puppet that I created. Only my mental power, can stop those puppets. After Yin finished his words, he took a swift glance at Yiqing Luo. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression, there was nothing unusual, the gleam in her eyes, there wasn't any special emotion. He then put his heart at ease. Looked like Yiqing Luo didn't understand what he meant. Not understanding, that was even better. But Yin was obviously assured and let it go too early. Yiqing Luo indeed didn't understand. But she had an invincible golden finger, the all-knowing Old Man Song. After Yin's hemming and hawing words came out, Old Man Song started the live broadcast explanation mode in Yiqing Luo's mind. The first way, although it sounds simple, but if it's really done, it's not that simple. You've seen how powerful the corpse puppets are. Not to mention smashing the corpse puppets, even breaking the corpse puppets' arms and legs, is extremely difficult. Especially 3,000 over corpse puppets. If they were to be smashed one by one, and your profound energy is depleted, I reckon only 20 to 30 corpse puppets will fall. Old Man Song directly rejected the first method that Yin suggested. Following that, he explained the second method. The reason why he is hemming and hawing is because the only way to stop the corpse puppets is to take his life. His mental power is the biggest medium to create the corpse puppets. And to stop the corpse puppets requires his mental power. Of course, what is needed is not to use his mental power to control the corpse puppets in the Nether Palace. But what is needed is to extract his mental power, using his mental power to refine a weapon, then it will be able to completely settle the corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated slightly. Extract mental power? A weapon infused with spiritual power? He's the same as me, a spirit body. He doesn't have a body of his own. And the greatest medium for a spirit body to communicate with the outside world was spiritual power. Just like this old man, the fact that I'm talking to you right now is also the result of mental energy. Old Man Song explained, when we who are spirits have our spiritual power extracted, we will lose our medium of communication with the outside world and will disappear from this world. That's why Yin didn't dare to say it out loud. How do I extract the mental energy? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at serene Yin. Coincidentally, she caught a glimpse of Yin's careful gaze, which was secretly sizing her up. Yiqing Luo adjusted the expression on her face and smiled at him. He did not reveal the slightest bit of expression. As Yin had revealed the method to deal with the dead corpse puppets, he felt a little guilty and was deeply afraid that Yiqing Luo had understood, so when Yiqing Luo smiled at him, he immediately retracted his gaze. Yiqing Luo continued to communicate with Old Man Song in her mind. Chapter 2903. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her eyes sparkled brightly for a moment. Her brows softened. The corners of her lips unconsciously curled into a faint arc. A warm and amiable smile. It made the surroundings seem as though spring had bloomed. This smile in the eyes of the two men beside her gave rise to different thoughts. After Yin saw Yiqing Luo's smile, his suspended heart was completely put down. After all, Yiqing Luo was just a young lass. She didn't know much. As for the overlord, apparently he didn't notice the loophole in his words. These two people definitely wouldn't have any ideas on him. What's more, Yiqing Luo had taken a fancy to his corpse controlling skills, which was why she kept him and made a deal with him. His corpse controlling skills were all used by her. Why would she need to think of ways to deal with those semi-finished products? In this way, he interpreted Yiqing Luo's smile in his heart. The expression on Yin's face also became more relaxed. And after Zhou Xian, who was carrying Yiqing Luo, saw this smile, his face, which had originally softened, suddenly froze. His peach blossom eyes flashed with icy cold murderous intent. This was a gentle and amiable smile. Not a smile for him. Who was it? Who was it who could make her reveal such a gentle, relaxed smile? Who else could surpass the position he held in her heart? This thought made Zhou Xian more anxious the more he thought about it. The expression on his face became increasingly gloomy. Both their inner emotions. Yiqing Luo didn't notice it. Her eyelashes fluttered and in her smile, there was innumerable gentleness. After a long time she closed her eyes and softly, gently smiled. Old man Song, do you trust me that much? Yuan was a spiritual body. Old man Song was also a spiritual body. But Old man Song, without any misgivings, told her his weakness as a spiritual body. If she had any other intentions. Old man Song said these words, wouldn't he be sending himself to her hands? How much trust did he have? Yiqing Luo's heart was warm. When Old man Song heard that, he totally didn't have Yiqing Luo's affectation. Who are you to me, who am I to you? Do I still need to explain the trust between us? Yiqing Luo's smile became even gentler as her brows were filled with a faint smile. Before he could respond to Old man Song, Yiqing Luo's waist was suddenly strangled. She frowned in pain. In the next instant, two slender and fair fingers gripped her chin forcefully. She didn't even have the leeway to resist. He was already forced to raise his head by the strength of two fingers and met a pair of sullen eyes. Her face was reflected in that pair of sparkling peach blossom eyes. The rippling light was infinitely demonic. Yiqing Luo was slightly startled. It wasn't just the strength on her waist that made her breathless. Even the strength of his jaw. It was also filled with a domineering aura. This man, why did he suddenly go crazy again? The after effects of the venomous centrifugal worm? Yiqing Luo wanted to push Zhou Xian away. But she didn't have time to raise her hand. The man's domineering aura had already pressed down on her. His passionate kiss landed on her lips fiercely. Completely unrestrained, sweeping everything that belonged to her. Yiqing Luo was startled by the sudden kiss and was somewhat stunned. The man's sandalwood scent lingered in her nose. She didn't understand what was the reason for Zhou Xian's sudden action. He wanted to struggle. Chapter 2904. Yiqing Luo had no way to resist Zhou Xian. In front of such a beauty she almost lost the ability to think. He had to admit it. Her dear Xian. What a torturous little fairy. Not long later, Yiqing Luo had already abandoned her armor. Until she was almost out of breath and collapsed into Zhou Xian's arms. The man finally showed mercy and loosened his grip on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's face turned crimson red, her little hand subconsciously clutched the man's collar tightly. What are you doing? There are other people watching. Inexplicably, he grabbed her and kissed her passionately. If he did not know, he was currently in the cold and abstinence-type centrifugal force goo mode. She almost thought that this man's brain had suddenly been possessed by a certain bug. Zhou Xian squinted his eyes and even stuck out his tongue in a teasing manner, licking his rosy lips as he laughed a little roguishly. Others? Who? Perhaps it was because of the intimacy just now. The man's voice was obviously husky and magnetic. He simply spat out 3 words. Yiqing Luo felt that it was extremely alluring. Yiqing Luo expressed that this man was really poisonous. Everything about him. He was not immune at all. Yiqing Luo blushed as she glanced sideways, standing by the side with an incomparably awkward and gloomy expression. Zhou Xian's voice rose as he glanced over. Yuan felt a chill run down his spine as he was a spiritual consciousness. He turned abruptly to show that he had not seen, that he had seen nothing. But the more he behaved like this. But wasn't that the more it proved? Earlier when Zhou Xian suddenly kissed her, Yuan had seen it clearly. Yiqing Luo flew into a rage out of embarrassment as she raised her head and stared fiercely at him, pushing him away in embarrassment. You move aside. She pushed harder and harder. The man's gaze deepened. He exerted more strength in his arms. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, stared at her shy eyes without blinking, and his voice was deep. What? Are you thinking about someone else in your mind, and after being kissed by me you feel sorry for that person? Yiqing Luo. She gave a question mark face. Who? Thinking of someone else? Who did I apologize to? Yiqing Luo was dumbfounded. Seeing Yiqing Luo's dazed look, he lowered his eyes. His deep and serene eyes were filled with a gloomy glow, dangerous and bewitching. Earlier, weren't you smiling happily? Yiqing Luo continued, with a question mark face. Smiling happily? What the hell was this man talking about? Xianxia's brows creased slightly as if he felt that she was quibbling, so he might as well put it bluntly. Earlier your face was rippling with laughter. If it wasn't thinking of another man, then what else could it be? His face rippled. Yiqing Luo tried hard to recall. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something. Just now, it seemed like it was because of old man Song's unconditional trust in her. Indeed, he was smiling warmly. In Xianxia's eyes. Just like that, a smile on his face. So Xianxia was jealous. Moreover, it was the kind of jealousy that overturned a jar of vinegar. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly as her lips curled into a joyful smile. Being jealous meant that he cared about her. Xianxia cared about her behavior. Woman. Xianxia saw that she didn't explain, and instead started laughing as his heart felt increasingly repressed. He locked her lower jaw again and closed in on her eyes as he spoke in a deep voice. Have you forgotten you're this lord's woman? Your thoughts should be placed on this lord. His voice became deeper and deeper. And it carried an obvious threat. Those words that were filled with jealousy. It made Yiqing Luo's mood became more and more joyful. Chapter 2905. What is the overlord saying? The one I care about the most is naturally you. My thoughts are naturally placed on you. Her eyes were curved, filled with craftiness. These words, this tone, no matter how one listened, it felt extremely insincere. This insincere attitude. It also made Xianxia's heart filled with an inexplicable gloominess, as he became more agitated. He frowned tightly as his fingers pinched even tighter. But the strength was well controlled, not hurting Yiqing Luo at all. Only fixing her line of sight as their four eyes met. In that case, your heart is indeed thinking of another man. He opened his mouth, his voice was slightly cold, with a biting cold intent. This was a sign of his anger. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't feel the coldness in the air. The smile on the corners of her lips deepened. Following Xianxia's words, she nodded her head seriously. The overlord is right, earlier I was indeed thinking of another man. Her words just ended. A violent hurricane was set off in the surroundings. Withered leaves and branches were scattered all over, dancing with the wind. A majestic and powerful aura enveloped the entire desolate forest. Yin, who was standing by the side, was intimidated by this surge of energy, as though his consciousness was about to burst, as though it would explode in the next moment. He looked at Yiqing Luo for help. His heart was filled with resentment. Facing the overlord's overbearing and possessive desire. Shouldn't she be pacifying the overlord's anger? Why, was so honest, telling the truth? And saying it in such a provocative manner? Wasn't she afraid that the overlord would fly into a rage and kill her to vent his anger? However, facing his pleading gaze, Yiqing Luo didn't even bother to look at him. On the contrary, the smile on her face was getting thicker. Between her brows, it was filled with ridicule and craftiness. She raised one hand, hooking it around Xianxia's neck. Her posture was extremely alluring. Why? The overlord is jealous? Her voice especially had a tinge of coquettishness. It made one feel numb upon hearing it. Xianxia's eyes flashed a wisp of red light, which disappeared in a flash. His brows creased even tighter, as though he was extremely displeased with Yiqing Luo's question. Overlord's jealous look is so adorable, I feel that. I like you even more now. Yiqing Luo's curved eyes were filled with ridicule. However, there was also a tenderness that could not be concealed. She tiptoed and inched closer to Xianxia. The man's handsome face was magnified in her eyes from such a close distance. She pursed her lips in a devilish manner, and there was a sly look in her eyes. Overlord, if you admit that you're jealous, I'll tell you who the man in my heart is. What do you think? Pa. The next moment, Xianxia had already rudely flung her hand away. Jealous? Will I be jealous? Xianxia sneered. The expression on his face was like frost. Woman, you're too full of yourself. The man's strength was not great. Yiqing Luo was only pushed back a step. She wasn't angry, but lazily twisted her own hand which was pushed earlier, tilted her head, raised her brows and gave a teasing smile. Overlord, are you shy? Xianxia frowned. He couldn't be bothered to answer Yiqing Luo. Or to put it more accurately, he didn't know how to answer. Towards Yiqing Luo. He was unable to harden his heart, unable to do it. And this woman was relying on his special treatment towards her. Chapter 2906. Looking at the young lady's obviously complacent and teasing smile, Zhou Xian's frozen expression slowly loosened up. A sense of helplessness arose in his heart. Just like what Miaozhi said. Words could lie. But feelings couldn't lie. He could choose not to believe Miaozhi's words. But he couldn't not believe his feelings towards this young lady. His emotions indeed could easily be affected by the young lady. Seeing Zhou Xian's gloomy face, staring at her without blinking, not saying a single word. Yiqing Luo teased him for a while, but was worried that Zhou Xian would really fly into a rage out of humiliation and leave directly. He had to worry about this man again. After all, even if this man lost his memory, his ability was there for all to see. If he wanted to hide, even if she turned the entire Miao tribe upside down, she would definitely not be able to find him. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into an evil smile. Both her hands once again circled around the man's waist, shamelessly raised her head and rubbed her chin against his chest. I know you're shy. Her voice was filled with mischievous joy, so the kind-hearted me will not force you to admit it. That delicate and lovely look. Just a few soft words of coquettish, which easily soothed all the frustrations in Zhou Xian's heart. Especially when the young lady took the initiative to snuggle into his arms. The young lady's fragrance seeped into his heart. The young lady's soft words entered his ears. His heart was already in a mess. This kind of change was completely this body's instinctive change. Zhou Xian himself felt extremely inconceivable. In his heart he recalled those words which he heard in the Miao tribe's tunnel. And recalled those words which Miaozhi told him. He could no longer doubt the feelings which he and Yiqing Luo once had. Be good, you must know my eyes are not blind in this world, I can't find a better husband than you. Yiqing Luo hooked his neck, tiptoed and gave his rosy lips a light peck. Very light, very fast. Zhou Xian had yet to feel it carefully. Yiqing Luo had already moved away, looking at him with a smile. The young lady's face was like a peach blossom, so beautiful that it made one suffocated. 3,000 strands of black hair intertwined with his black hair. It was like a sign that they would be entangled like this. The corners of Zhou Xian's eyes suddenly twitched upwards as he gave off a devilish charm. In Mo Yao's peach blossom eyes, an extremely enchanting black flower sprout bloomed. He suppressed his voice and whispered in her ear, if you meet a man who is better than me, will you abandon me and choose someone else? Does the overlord have no confidence in yourself? Yiqing Luo wrapped her arms around his sturdy waist as her eyes followed suit, asking back with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Zhou Xian's eyes flashed as he increased the strength of his fingers, pressing her petite body tightly into his embrace. He leaned close to her ear and said, it seems that I have to keep an eye on you. This sentence made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes flutter rapidly for a few times. Her body stiffened as she lifted her eyes to look at the man's face. It was as if he couldn't believe it. Zhou Xian actually answered her question. And, with such a serious tone. One had to know Zhou Xian was in the centrifugal force goo mode. He did not feel that he liked her at all. And this sentence from Zhou Xian. Obviously he had already admitted that he had feelings for her. It was also implicitly expressing one meaning. In the future he would always be by her side. The smile on Yiqing Luo's face blossomed bit by bit. Brilliant like a captivating poppy. Chapter 2907. Yuan was originally oppressed by Zhou Xian's aura, as though his soul was about to fly away. In the end he inexplicably ate a mouthful of dog food. He finally understood why the legendary mysterious Dizun, who even martial highnesses were afraid of, would fall in love with a little girl from the lower realm. This one was called Yiqing Luo. Her pacifying methods were simply too powerful. She could easily pacify the overlord's anger. She could even make the overlord stick to her like glue. Yuan expressed that this mouthful of dog food was too much for him, and he totally could not take it anymore. He braced himself and spoke weakly, that, Mistress of the Imperial Palace, I've already said what I need to say. When are you going to help me to regain my human form? Earlier under Zhou Xian's imposing manner, his soul consciousness was more or less injured. Hearing Yuan's voice, Yiqing Luo then recalled that she still had something to do. It was all because the beauty was too misleading. No wonder there were so many monarchs. Once they fell into the beauty's arms, they would never attend morning court. She had forgotten about the important matters for the sake of beauty. Yiqing Luo pouted coquettishly as she stared at Zhou Xian. Following that, she pushed the man away and put on a serious expression as she looked at Yin. Cough cough. And to help you to regain your human form, this. She paused as her mind was pondering over the words to say. Seeing Yiqing Luo keeping silent, Yin's expression suddenly changed. What do you mean by this? Yiqing Luo coughed lightly as her gaze fell onto those unmoving corpse puppets which were lying on the ground not too far away. She immediately opened her mouth. I still have questions, what's the hurry? As soon as she finished speaking, her half-squinted eyes reflected an extremely shallow cold arc. What? You don't believe me? Since you don't believe me, then the deal between us. No, it's not that I don't believe you. Yin hurriedly interrupted Yiqing Luo's words. But in his heart he was secretly gritting his teeth. She had already learned so much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness from him. After betraying the Overlord. Today he absolutely could not return to the Nether Palace. How could he possibly cancel the deal with Yiqing Luo? The only person he could rely on was Yiqing Luo. To be more precise, it could only be His Majesty. Only the Venerable Dizun could fight against the Venerable One. He tried his best to suppress the anger that Yiqing Luo felt towards his insidiousness as he gave an embarrassed smile. Overlord Matriarch, what else do you want to ask? Go ahead. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she pointed to the undead puppets not too far away. According to the two methods you mentioned to resolve the puppets, then. The puppets over there, since they have not been smashed into smithereens, they shouldn't be under your control to stop their attacks. But they didn't climb up to launch another attack. Can you tell me why? You cast a gloomy glance at the puppets and lowered your head in embarrassment. I have spent half my life to create these half-finished toys, so there are still many flaws in these toys. He cautiously took a glance at Zhou Xian's direction. These semi-finished products are created by my mental power. Overlord's mental power is above mine. He attacked these semi-finished products and cut off my mind control, so that was to say, as long as one's mental strength was above Yin, it was much easier to deal with those undead corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. This time, Yin didn't dare to open his mouth to urge Yiqing Luo. Chapter 2908. Yiqing Luo didn't let Yin wait for too long. He pondered for a moment. Suddenly, as though she heard something, she raised her head slightly and stared at Yin with a smile which didn't look like a smile for a long time. It made Yin's hair stand on end. Yiqing Luo then slowly curled her lips, revealing a smile with deep meaning. Her head nodded unnoticeably as though she was responding to something. Her eyes were filled with craftiness. Let me ask you one last question. Yiqing Luo opened her mouth with a smile. This sentence made Yin's taut nerves relax instantly. His eyes suddenly lit up and his face revealed an expression of wild joy. He was overly excited that he didn't notice the glint in Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo's gaze looked at Yin quietly and then she spoke word by word. The revered sir that you mentioned, who exactly is he? Where in the upper realm is he from? This question came out. Yin's joyous expression froze. He shrunk his body and said in a trembling voice, Revered One. Revered One he. His identity, even if I tell you, you absolutely have no way to find him. He could tell. Yin was filled with fear towards that revered one. Mistress of the Imperial Palace, although your ability in the lower realm is boundless and you can do anything you want, but revered one, he is really someone you can't afford to offend. Even if the Overlord is by your side, you will not be able to find him, because you have no way to reach the realm of the revered one. Every word Yin said, his body trembled a little. The fear towards the revered one had already seeped deep into his bones. Yin's attitude, which made Yiqing Luo even more certain. The relationship between the Palace of Darkness and that revered one was just a simple cooperation. When mentioning about the matters of the Palace of Darkness, Yin sold it out without any embarrassment. But when it came to the revered one, Yin was so afraid. Yiqing Luo organized the important contents of Yin's words in her mind. It looked like this revered one was not just someone from the upper realm. And he was at an extremely high place. The upper realm was divided into the earth realm, heaven realm and God realm. To make Yin insist that she absolutely could not find the revered one and reach that realm. Could it be that the revered one was from God realm? No, no, no. God realm. How could the people of the God realm have any thoughts about a lower realm like the Nirvana realm? One had to know that the people of the God realm could practically be called the rulers of all living things in the world. It was almost a legend, a myth. Were there people in the God realm? It was still a puzzle. There was no need to say that the people of the immortal realm had their eyes on her divine phoenix profound heart jade and had specially planned all of this. She had placed the divine phoenix profound heart jade in front of the people of the God realm. Perhaps the God realm wouldn't even spare them a glance. Yiqing Luo directly rejected this idea. Then he looked solemnly at Yin. Whether or not I can find him or reach his level is not important. What's important is, I want to know who he is. Yiqing Luo bent down as her lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. Yin, do you think that by helping the revered to keep this secret, you will be able to return to the five nether, and return to the side of the revered that you mentioned? Yu Yin's face immediately turned pale. But I can't go back. Ever since Yu Ji absorbed the last of his mental power in order to survive. From the moment he made his choice. Chapter 2909. Go back and wait for him. There was only endless torture. This was how the Venerable One treated traitors. He wasn't going to kill him. He was going to pay with his life. Instead he used extreme means to make him wish he was dead. There was no way he would go back. He would never go back. I'll talk. Yu Yin clenched his fists. In the end he made his final decision. He abruptly raised his head as his eyes were burning, with a tinge of crazed ruthlessness as he stared at Yiqing Luo, the current me. I've told you everything, I'm yours, don't lie to me. You must help me recover my human form. Then he gritted his teeth and endured the fear that spread from the bottom of his heart. Venerable One, he's from the upper three. His words had just left his mouth. It was only when he spat out a few words. His pupils suddenly dilated. In that instant his body stiffened. His face instantly turned deathly pale. His extremely wretched face became distorted bit by bit. He had clearly transformed into a physical body. It actually began to turn into an indistinct soul body that was about to dissipate. Yin looked at his own body in disbelief and fear appeared on his face. He stretched out his hand towards Yiqing Luo's direction. His mouth opened and moved silently. Save me. Save me. From the shape of his lips, Yiqing Luo could decipher the gloomy words. This change seemed to have taken a long time. Actually, it only lasted for a moment. At the same time when something happened to Yin, Zhou Xian's long arm had already wrapped around her waist, pressing her into his embrace. Yin's outstretched hand naturally touched nothing. His entire body was powerless and he slumped to the ground. His faintly discernible body seemed to be suffering from pain. It was as if he would disappear with the wind at any time. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she stared at Yu Yin's pained expression, asking Old Man Tsong for the reason in her mind. However, Yiqing Luo called out to Old Man Tsong for quite some time. He didn't even get half a word of response from Old Tsong. Yiqing Luo's heart was in a fluster. It was a sudden change in the darkness. Old Man Tsong was also suddenly uncontactable. It was as if someone had blocked the mental energy of this magnetic field. This thought made Yiqing Luo's face turn pale. She raised her head and quickly scanned her surroundings. Her little hand clutched tightly onto Zhou Xian's collar as she lowered her voice. Ah Xian, have you sensed anything, any other aura? Zhou Xian sensed the young lady's panic. He squinted his peach blossom eyes and immediately wrapped his arms around Yiqing Luo's waist. With a leap, he had already brought Yiqing Luo as they flew towards a certain direction. Not far from the jungle, a few lush trees intertwined. Two figures were faintly discernible in the forest, looking extremely mysterious. Vaguely, the sounds of people talking could be heard. This guy actually dared to betray the Venerable. A cold and delicate female voice rang out. Her tone was filled with ridicule. Beside her, a tall man in a black robe glanced at the woman and scoffed. How dare he betray the Venerable One? Heh. His tone was filled with disdain. The woman chuckled coldly. It's also because of Yuji's timely report that we managed to make it in time. Yuji. Seemingly displeased, the woman spat out another man's name. The man's voice sank. That's just a waste who fled. Chapter 29:10. The man's expression softened after hearing the lady's tender words. Yin is already dead, let's go back to report. His words had just ended. Suddenly he swiftly grabbed the lady beside him and pulled her into his arms. His figure swiftly retreated a few steps. Swoosh. Mixed with raging profound energy, it smashed onto the ground in an overwhelming manner. Following that, in front of them, a slender figure walked out from the layers of tumbling airwaves. That man was dressed in a purple long robe, as though a king had descended onto the world, with an imposing manner. The man was forced to retreat in a disheveled state. He hugged the lady and finally stabilized himself, swiftly raising his head as he stared vigilantly at the man in front. His gaze was fixed on that man's arms on the cold-looking young lady. The young lady slowly walked out from that man's arms. A red robe like a raging flame wrapped around the young lady's petite figure, bringing along a body which made one feel pressured. There was clearly a hint of a smile in her alluring eyes, but it made people shudder. Yiqing Luo. The man stared at the young lady as he slowly spat out a name. The lady in the man's arms, upon hearing this name, immediately stuck her head out from the man's arms. Under the black robe, a pair of bright and sinister beautiful eyes were revealed. And at this moment Yiqing Luo also clearly saw the faces of the two people in front of her. Her slender brows creased tightly, word by word, accurately calling out their names. Yuhan Yu knew, when these two names came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. The expression on the man and lady's face instantly changed. They exchanged glances and from each other's eyes, they could see the bewilderment. These two people were not others. They were the two people whom Yiqing Luo saw in the 21st century's plane, using Netherworld's mirror. The other two underlings of the Overlord. Yuhan and Yu knew, you're here to silence me? Yiqing Luo looked towards Yu Yin's direction. Yu Yin's consciousness body was obviously getting weaker and weaker. And she was still unable to contact Old Man Tsang. Her heart suddenly felt suspicious. From Yu Ji's escape from here, the time used at most did not exceed 1 hour. And Yuhan and Yu knew so quickly rushed over to silence him? Did Yu Ji have such a fast speed? Or perhaps, Yuhan and Yu knew were actually near the Miao tribe? This thought made Yiqing Luo's expression congealed, as her eyes stared vigilantly at the two people in front of her. Yu Nu also stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking, especially when she saw Yiqing Luo's face. A sliver of unconcealable jealousy flashed past her eyes. She pursed her red lips in a sinister manner and her delicate voice was cold. Miss Yi is indeed smart to be able to recognize the two of us at first glance. As she was saying that, she shot a sinister gaze towards Zhou Xian. We're really lucky. Not only are we able to see Miss Ye's devastatingly beautiful countenance, we're also able to see the mysterious Overlord. This time round we've really not lost anything by coming here. After saying that, Yu Nu giggled. Her bright red fingernails gently caressed her red lips. Her smile was extremely charming. Have you thought about the consequences of snatching someone from this sovereign's hands? Zhou Xian looked straight ahead, totally not interested in Ghost Girl's invisible and deliberate seduction. His deep and cold voice didn't fluctuate at all. But in Yu Nu's ears she could hear the murderous intent in his voice. The smile on Yu Nu's face froze on her face. Yuhan tightened her arms, hugging Yu Nu tightly as she puffed out her chest, blocking Zhou Xian's might, her face filled with vigilance. Zhou Xian glanced sideways slightly, as his vision fell onto a lump of something which couldn't be seen clearly lying on the ground by Yuhan's feet. Chapter 29:11. Serene Spirit Body? Yiqing Luo's gaze followed Zhou Xian's line of sight. Indeed, she saw that bundle of spirit body thing by Yuhan's feet. Wasn't it the Serene Spirit Body? When Yiqing Luo's line of sight fell onto the Serene Spirit Body, Yuhan's expression congealed as her fingers clasped tightly and pulled Yu Nu behind her. Following that, she lowered her head and hooked the Serene Spirit Body. Go! Zhou Xian spat out a word calmly towards Yiqing Luo. The moment his words landed, he had already turned into a purple shadow as he flew towards Yuhan. No matter how fast Yuhan was, it couldn't be compared to Zhou Xian. He didn't even touch the corner of the Serene Spirit Body. But he was sent flying by a tyrannical force. Yuhan had no choice but to give up on the Serene Spirit Body and evaded. Which was the instance when he evaded. Yuhan only saw a red shadow flashing past, bringing along an overbearing aura like a raging flame. Yuhan's heart trembled as her pupils expanded rapidly as she looked towards the direction where the Serene Spirit Body fell. There was no sign of the serene Yin spirit body there. Yiqing Luo. Yu Nu's gaze was fixated on Yiqing Luo. The instance when she sensed Yiqing Luo's movement. Yu Nu had already chased after her like a shadow. But still she wasn't able to stop Yiqing Luo from lifting up the serene Yin spirit body and swiftly leaving. Yu Nu's face was slightly flushed as though she was provoked. In Yu Nu's heart she had always looked down on Yiqing Luo. She couldn't understand. Why would the almighty, godlike revered be so interested in a young lady from the lower realm? Even for a young lady from the lower realm he specially sent them 5 nether to the lower realm to complete a mission. It was simply like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Bring the spirit body over to Serene Yin. After Zhou Xian stopped Yu Han he returned to Yiqing Luo. His tall figure blocked in front of Yiqing Luo. Like a majestic mountain range. Yiqing Luo carried the serene Yin spirit body as she looked at the man's back in a daze. Her brows turned gentle. A faint smile appeared on her lips. If we can capture these 2 alive, that would be the best. Even though Ghost Hand Wu Yu was an abandoned pawn that the Venerable had placed in the Nirvana realm. However, the abandoned son knew a lot about the Venerables. He also knew some things that even Yu Yin did not know. Saying that, Yiqing Luo didn't hesitate any further as she lifted Serene Yin's spiritual body and rushed towards the direction where Serene Yin's consciousness was about to disappear. It was obvious that it had been suppressed by the magnetic field that had been constructed inexplicably in the surroundings. It was almost unable to maintain its form. He wanted to get information about the Venerable One from Yu Yin. He couldn't wait any longer. Zhou Xian was here. Be it Yu Han or Yu Nu, they wouldn't be able to escape if nothing unexpected happened. All the strength in his body seemed to have been sucked out and he weakly collapsed on the ground. From time to time, the black robe on his body would scatter and gather together. It was like smoke. Occasionally the wind would blow. His body would also be blown apart. Gloom wanted to move the body created by his spirit sense. However, he could only watch as his body gradually became transparent. There was nothing he could do. Suddenly Yu Yin heard a series of hurried footsteps. Bringing along with it a majestic profound energy, it pressed forward speedily. The majestic profound energy stirred up a hurricane, almost blew his originally tottering body into scattered sand. Luckily that hurricane was closing in. Very quickly he retracted his own presence. Chapter 29:12. What entered his eyes was the young lady's fiery dress fluttering, as though it was a phoenix spreading its wings, extremely gorgeous. Gorgeous to the point. His pupils felt a stab of pain. But, the next moment, Yu Yin's gaze shifted to Yiqing Luo's hand, on that lump of spirit body. Instantly his eyes glowed slightly as he raised his last breath in ecstasy. Quickly let me back into the spirit body. I knew it. You won't bear for me to die. I won't die. Yiqing Luo placed Yu Yin's unconscious spirit body on the ground. Yu Yin immediately wanted to pounce over. But he couldn't exert any strength at all. He was obviously just 3 steps away from his spirit body. But he couldn't touch it at all. Yu Yin's breathing hastened. Bring it over. Come over a little. I want to go back into the spirit body. Go back. He who was in the state of spiritual consciousness. He was simply too weak. As long as he returned to the spirit body, at least he could extend his mental power. However, facing his pleas for help, Yiqing Luo didn't move at all. The young lady's lips curled into a faint smile as she took elegant steps, strolling towards him. That pair of slender legs, past Yu Yin's spirit body. Standing in front of him, looking down at him from a high position. The mental power magnetic field here has been suppressed by your other 2 brothers. Are you sure? You can return to your spirit body? Spiritual consciousness was formed from mental power. Spirit body was originally a spirit body. To be precise, it was a person's soul which had turned into an entity. This kind of existence originally relied on mental power, to be able to communicate with the outside world, to wander in the outside world. Just like Old Man Song. And to extract the spiritual consciousness from the spirit body. This was an extremely risky action. The spiritual consciousness would not be able to return to the spirit body within 24 hours. Then the soul would disperse. Moreover, the moment the spirit body was attacked, the spiritual consciousness would also suffer the same damage. Just like earlier. Yu Yin was just about to mention the matter regarding the Venerable. But Yu Han and Yu Nu used Yu Yin's spirit body to stop Yu Yin. Then using some special method they cut off the mental power magnetic field. Even if Yu Yin's spirit body was placed in front of Yu Yin's spiritual consciousness, probably the Nether Een could not even return to his spirit body. No. I don't want to die. No, you can't. His gloomy voice was shrill as his eyes suddenly widened as he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Overlord Matriarch, you can help me, you can definitely help me, you can help me, right? All the strength in his body disappeared. His body gradually became incorporeal like smoke, scattering from time to time. The fear of death caused Yuan's expression to become even more fearful. He looked at Yiqing Luo hopefully. Yiqing Luo had a way to help him regain his human form. There must be a way for him to return to his spiritual body. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms and looked at him quietly for a long time before her lips curled into an evil smile. Helping you is only natural after all. We're going to work together. His eyes lit up with joy. But Yiqing Luo changed the topic. Before I help you, you have to tell me what you haven't said first. His dark eyes widened. He stared at Yiqing Luo as his eyes were filled with viciousness. Yuan seemed to have thought of something as the black qi in his eyes almost suffused him. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and was about to say something to make Yuan lower his guard, not to swallow himself. Chapter 29:13. As he spoke, his body seemed to respond to his words. It gradually became illusory. It was as if it would disappear with the wind at any time. After that, Yuan intentionally opened his mouth as he desperately stretched out his hand towards Yiqing Luo. However, his mouth opened and closed laboriously. However, he did not utter a single sound. Even his expression gradually became ferocious, as if it was very strenuous. His outstretched hand couldn't be raised at all, and it kept turning transparent. He looked as if he had reached his limit. If Yiqing Luo really wanted to get news of the revered sir from Yu Yin's mouth, or perhaps he really needed the Netherworld Corpse controlling technique to achieve his goal, he would definitely not let Yuan die just like that. However, when he saw Yu Yin's expression, which seemed as if his soul was about to dissipate, Yu Yin's expression changed. Yiqing Luo was totally unmoved. Instead, she raised her eyebrows and looked at him playfully. Those deep and enchanting eyes seemed to contain endless vortexes and abysses. It was as if he could see through her heart and soul with a single glance. Yu Yin's faintly discernible face stiffened slightly. Yiqing Luo still had no intention to speak. His expression was calm and composed. Finally, Yuan, who had come into contact with death and feared death, could not hold it in any longer. His sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Right from the start. Right from the start, you had no intention to help me, right? Ever since Yiqing Luo saw that his soul was about to dissipate, she remained indifferent and only cared about inquiring about the identity of the revered sir. Yuan had already guessed this. However, he was still unwilling to believe it. He couldn't believe it either. That was why he pretended to be unable to hold on to test Yiqing Luo. Unexpectedly, Yu Yin's heart sank and his voice trembled. Mistress of the Imperial Palace, save me. Save me, I'll tell you everything about the Venerable. I'll tell you everything. When he said this sentence, his voice sounded like it was about to stop. The entire black robe transformed into a transparent gas. If you want me to save you, shouldn't you show me some sincerity? Yiqing Luo tilted her head and smiled evilly. Yuan's pupils constricted and he took a deep breath in pain and anger. Save me. Save me. Yiqing Luo looked at him fixedly. Suddenly he smiled. She knew that Yuan had already seen through her thoughts. No matter how she asked, Yuan would definitely not tell her what he knew. Because this was his last bargaining chip. Might as well. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to continue pretending as she gave a low laugh. To tell the truth, I don't know how to let you return to your spiritual body. Even if you beg me, it's of no use. Yu Yin's pupils turned black. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo smiled as her eyes squinted. You want to live on so much and I'm such a gentle and kind person, how could I bear to shatter your fantasy? Yuan was so infuriated by Yiqing Luo's shamelessness that he kept coughing. Every cough, his transparent body floated in the air like a wisp of smoke. Don't be angry. Once you get angry, your soul might really fly away and scatter. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her eyes filled with ridicule. You don't have a way to help me recover my human body. Don't. You don't have a way, do you? The darkness in the depths of his dark eyes grew more and more intense. That ball of black qi lingered around his body. Staring at that ball of black qi on Yu Yin's body, Yiqing Luo vaguely felt that her wrist had a trace of imperceptible scorching sensation. The azure dew bracelet had a reaction. Then, could she also contact Old Man Song? Yiqing Luo immediately pressed her hand on the azure dew bracelet and called out to Old Man Song. Chapter 29:14. She couldn't contact Old Man Song. This meant that the mental energy magnetic field here was still suppressed. But why would the azure dew bracelet react? Yiqing Luo's fingertips gently stroked her arm, the cherry blossom pattern that looked like a birthmark. His line of sight suddenly landed on Yuin's eyes, which had black edges and was engulfed in black energy. In her mind, what Old Man Song said earlier appeared: extract mental energy, refine weapons, then you can deal with the undead puppets created by Yuin. Mental energy. Yuin was able to attract the attention of the revered, and use his spiritual form to create undead puppets, and use Yin Qi to control people's hearts. To be able to do this, his mental energy must have exceeded ordinary people by hundreds of times. Now Yu Yin's spiritual form and consciousness were in the same space. Even if the surrounding magnetic field of mental energy was suppressed, Yu Yin's strong mental energy would still produce some slight fluctuations. And this fluctuation, when Yu Yin was angered by her to the point that her aura exploded and her rage value skyrocketed, the fluctuations caused were even more obvious. In other words, if she let Yu Yin's mental energy reach its peak, break through the mental energy magnetic field here, then immediately let Old Man Song help to extract Yu Yin's mental energy. In this way, not only could she use Yu Yin to break the mental energy magnetic field, she could also extract Yu Yin's maximum mental energy. This would be of great benefit to using this mental energy to create weapons in the future. Why don't you know the way to restore your human body but know so much about the spiritual form? I am not willing. A sharp curse came out from Yu Yin's mouth. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo's words, he wouldn't have been fooled so thoroughly by Yiqing Luo. He really couldn't understand how could a mere 15-year-old Yiqing Luo know so much about the spiritual form? The overlord wouldn't talk to her about this topic for no reason. Yiqing Luo returned from her thoughts, hearing Yu Yin's words. Her pink lips curved, because she paused and leaned down. Yu Yin's eyes widened, trying hard to hear the reason. But he saw Yiqing Luo looking at him, using her lips, slowly and silently said, "You're stupid." Swoosh. The black qi in Yu Yin's eyes suddenly moved. Yiqing Luo could feel that the azure dew bracelet's heat was gradually rising in temperature. The reaction became even stronger. This also meant that her guess was correct. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly, the smile on the corners of her lips added a few hints of ridicule. "Yu Yin, I'm afraid you've gone crazy thinking of becoming a human. Trying anything in a desperate situation?" She narrowed her eyes and her voice became even more provocative. "You're right. From the beginning I just wanted to find out what I wanted to know from your mouth." Swoosh. The black aura grew thicker. "Do you want to know why I know about spirit bodies and why I can really pull you back from the brink of death when you are seriously injured?" Yiqing Luo's smile was brilliant like a blooming gorgeous flower. She smiled sweetly and her fragrance was splendid. "That's because I have a spirit body by my side." Yiqing Luo lowered her voice. "I asked that spiritual body to transfer a portion of its mental energy to you. And to put it accurately, it means that the soul has possessed the body." Chapter 29:15. Slut. His gloomy and ruthless eyes were filled with scarlet at this moment. He gritted his teeth and scolded Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't mind much as her slender fingers pressed against her lower jaw, as she squinted at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Think about it, the revered one you mentioned for your mental power, he forcefully turned you into a spiritual form to be used by him. Shouldn't you reveal all his secrets to me so that I can help you take revenge?" Dream. Yu Yin spat out these 3 words through gritted teeth. That intangible spiritual consciousness at this moment was completely filled with black qi. Endless black qi wrapped around Yu Yin like a huge black cocoon. Bang. At the edge of the forest there was an explosive sound. It was as if something had exploded. At the same time Yiqing Luo felt that there was something flowing in the air. Immediately Old Man Song's familiar voice sounded in her mind. the mental power magnetic field was actually cut off. Luo girl, you have some ability. Old man Song, now is the time when his mental power is at its strongest. Take the opportunity to extract his mental power. Yiqing Luo didn't have time to explain so much to Old man Song. Old man Song reacted and knew the reason why the mental power magnetic field was cut off was related to Yuan. Its spirit body swiftly drilled out of the azure dew bracelet and charged towards the ball of nether-een that resembled a silkworm chrysalis. Endless black qi instantly enveloped Old man Song's spiritual body. Yiqing Luo took 2 quick steps forward. But she was forced back by that black qi. She clenched her fingers and stared at Old man Song's direction. Her heart felt like it was being fiercely strangled, extremely nervous. This was the first time Old man Song came out of the azure dew bracelet and fought alone. What was Old man Song's strength? She wasn't clear. Only worried. Old man Song hadn't used his skills for almost 1,000 years. If there was a slight negligence, it was very likely to give Yuan a chance to counterattack. In the air, the rolling black qi continued to deepen. The whirlpool waves rolled. Half a stick of incense had passed and there was no response from Old man Song. Yiqing Luo's heart became more anxious. His tightly clenched fingers moved to his wrist bit by bit. She pressed down on the azure dew bracelet, her eyes filled with anxiety. He wanted to rush forward several times. They would all be repelled by that powerful mental power. The time it took for an incense stick to burn passed. The black cocoon's aura showed no signs of diminishing. As for Old man Song, he was still unable to obtain his response. Even the connection between him and Old man Song was completely severed. This made Yiqing Luo's heart even more restless. Just as Yiqing Luo was filled with worry, her eyes were flustered as she stared at the black qi in front of her. An arm encircled her delicate body. In an extremely domineering manner, he pressed her into his arms. The fragrance of sandalwood wafted over. Yiqing Luo seemed to have found her backbone as she speedily turned around and grabbed the man's collar with her tightly clenched hands. Zhou Xian lowered his gaze. Her thick and long eyelashes cast an arc of shadow. His gaze landed on the 2 fair fingers in front of his chest. His fingers had obvious traces of pinching flesh with his nails. His fingertips were still pale. He frowned, his tone displeased. Why don't I see you so worried about me? Xian. Yiqing Luo's voice was flustered. Look over there, Old man Song is helping me extract Yuan Yin's mental power. You say, will there be an accident, Old man Song? Chapter 29:16. He raised his eyes and looked at the place where the black gas was swirling. Spiritual body? Zhou Xian lowered his head again and lifted Yiqing Luo's chin as he sneered. You are this lord's woman, you have the time to worry about a spiritual body but not this lord? Yiqing Luo wasn't in the mood to joke around with Zhou Xian. She held on to Zhou Xian's hand which was supporting her chin. Yu Han and Yu Nu are not your match, I believe you. But Old man Song is different. What's different? Zhou Xian didn't wait for her to finish her words as he squinted his peach blossom eyes and swept a biting cold glance at Yiqing Luo's hand which was intertwined with his as his voice turned even colder. Earlier, you were smiling at that spiritual body, right? Yiqing Luo was slightly dazed by Zhou Xian's unreasonable rage. Zhou Xian noticed that she was in a daze. That was a tacit agreement. Her smile just now was indeed directed at the spiritual body called Old man Song. There seemed to be something heavy pressing down on his heart. It made him feel extremely annoyed. Especially in his mind, the image of Yiqing Luo's gentle smile surfaced. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He pursed his thin lips tightly, not liking this kind of feeling that caused his emotions to fluctuate violently. He waved away Yiqing Luo's little hand which was on the back of his hand. Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo was already anxious from this push and she became even more flustered. Now is not the time to make a fuss. Old man Song isn't any other man, he's an elder that I respect. Not another man? Zhou Xian's eyes drooped as he muttered these few words. Totally not caring about Yiqing Luo's last sentence. Elder? So what if they were elders? Isn't the elder a man? Now it was respect. He didn't know what kind of feelings they would have in the future. The more Zhou Xian thought about it, the more vexed he felt. He suppressed the restlessness in his heart and turned to leave. However, after taking a few steps, the girl behind him didn't catch up to him with a good temper like before, acting cute and coquettish. In this way, Zhou Xian's heart was even more upset. The current Zhou Xian. He felt very conflicted. Because of Yi Qingluo's indifference towards him and the importance she placed on other men, he wanted to wash his hands and leave. And because Yi Qingluo didn't chase after him or ask him to stay, he was sulking. Most importantly, when Yi Qingluo looked at him earlier, her eyes were filled with anxiety and worry as though she was about to cry. Even if he wanted to leave, he couldn't move his feet. His heart was tangled and conflicted. This made Zhou Xian extremely vexed. How could he have such troublesome emotions? Why would he fall for that young lady called Yi Qingluo? Why did he have a special liking for her? His mind was filled with chaotic thoughts, and it made him even more frustrated. Why wasn't that woman chasing after him yet? At least give him a way out. Zhou Xian was filled with a bellyful of displeasure as he simply turned around and rushed towards the direction of the young lady. The girl raised her head and stared unblinkingly at the floating black cocoon in front of her. Countless wisps of black smoke were still swirling around the chrysalis. The young girl tightly grasped the lapel in front of her chest. Her pair of charming eyes, which were usually filled with quick-wittedness and craftiness, now faintly floated with a watery glint, as if there was no hope left in them. Her worried feet kept pacing around. Occasionally she even walked towards that ball of black smoke. A powerful mental power blocked her footsteps. A sharp glint flashed past the young lady's eyes. Chapter 29:17. Yi Qingluo's right hand's fingers opened up. Immediately, the other hand quickly stroked one of her right hand's fingers. A crimson jade ring appeared on her fingertip. The ring glowed with a red lightning-like light. One look and you knew it was not an ordinary item. Zhou Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes as he stared carefully at that ring. He discovered that there were ancient patterns and totems flashing on the ring under the flowing light. Divine relic. Was that an ancient divine relic? Zhou Xian only felt that the ring was extremely familiar. But he couldn't recall it. Where on earth had he seen this ring before? Seeing Yi Qingluo releasing the power of the divine relic, there was a voice shouting in his heart. Stop her! Stop her! Stop Yi Qingluo! And at this moment, there was no time for Zhou Xian to ponder further. Just as Yi Qingluo released the power of the divine relic to meet that obstructing mental power, he had already stepped forward and grabbed Yi Qingluo's body. The moment Zhou Xian's hand pressed on Yi Qingluo's body, Yi Qingluo's surging profound energy was instantly suppressed. This change made Yi Qingluo's slender brows knitted tightly as she raised her hand and wanted to push the man away. Do you feel that you're tired of living? The man's cold voice was filled with anger and reprimand. Yi Qingluo's pushing hand froze. She raised her eyes and stared at Zhou Xian. And in his eyes she saw a trace of sullen coldness. Trying to use the power of the divine relic to forcefully penetrate the mental power. Do you feel that your willpower is very strong and want to test your mental power? Zhou Xian's brows sunk as he reprimanded sternly. Have you ever thought that if you fail to penetrate the mental power, your own mental power will be destroyed? Because of Zhou Xian's inexplicable jealousy, Yi Qingluo's heart was already very uncomfortable. At this moment she was reprimanded by Zhou Xian again. Yi Qingluo bit her lips as she felt wronged. Didn't you feel that I'm fickle and frivolous and don't want to care about me? Why did you come back for? What are you doing? That was like a little girl's demeanor. This made the gloomy feeling in Zhou Xian's heart finally cleared up a little. Zhou Xian clasped her hand tightly and flung her behind him without any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Stay at one side. Yi Qingluo staggered a few steps. By the time she steadied herself, the man had already leaped into the chrysalis that was shrouded in black gas. She didn't even have time to say a word of warning. Yi Qingluo gritted her teeth and curled her fingers tightly. This was the reason why Zhou Xian intentionally shook her off. It was so that she wouldn't be able to stabilize herself, so that she wouldn't have the time to stop him and take the chance to take the risk. She did not want Zhou Xian to run into the black gas. He just wanted to know how to help old man Song from his mouth. When facing Yu Han and Yu Nu, she was not worried about Zhou Xian. That was because she could more or less guess Yu Han's and Yu Nu's strength. He was also certain that Zhou Xian would not be injured. But it was a mass of black gas. It was a ball of powerful spiritual energy. It was an unknown power. She couldn't get close. She couldn't be sure if Zhou Xian would be safe or not. Looking at that mass of chrysalis that was tumbling faster and faster, Yiqing Luo's heart felt more and more uneasy and flustered. Earlier she was only worried about old man Song alone. Now she had to worry about the both of them. Yiqing Luo's heart was tightly clenched into a ball. Chapter 29:18. Another half a stick of incense had passed. The raging black qi was still rolling like a tide with no signs of diminishing. Yiqing Luo's hands were clenched into fists, almost bleeding. That pair of charming eyes didn't even dare to blink. Zhou Xian had already put himself in danger. Why? There was still no movement. What on earth was going on? Zhou Xian and old man Song didn't have any response. And this black qi was still raging more and more violently. Could it be that something had happened to them? The mental energy that was released by this gloom. Was it actually a trap? This thought made Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. Almost without any hesitation. She once again activated the Azure Dew Ring's power, preparing to forcefully barge in. Just at this moment, suddenly a gust of hurricane struck. Only to see a purple figure flying out. That figure turned a few times and stabilized his figure in midair. When Yiqing Luo saw that person, her charming eyes were immediately filled with joy. Her feet moved quickly, jogging into the man's arms. Two hands tightly wrapped around the man's waist. Ah Xian. It was Dmo Xian. He came out. Safely came out from the black qi. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, looking at the young lady in his arms who took the initiative to hug him. His thin lips couldn't help but curled up, curling into a devilish arc. He emptied one hand, wrapping it around the young lady's soft body. Want to be disobedient again? His low, hoarse voice whispered softly in her ear. That handsome face was reflected in the young lady's pupils. Yiqing Luo subconsciously, her finger which was wearing the Azure Dew Ring, shrank back. But her wrist was grabbed by the man. I'm not by your side for a while and you want to mess around? Dmo Xian raised her hand, raising his brows with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Yiqing Luo's eyes drooped, very obedient. I'm wrong. Dmo Xian's eyes were as deep as the sea. This lord for you has consecutively taken action 3 times today, and you still want to create trouble for this lord for the 4th time, you think? Just one sentence will do? She could hear the implied meaning in the man's words. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she obediently followed Dmo Xian's words. Then, according to Overlord's intention, what should we do? It said that the grace of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This lord has helped you 3 times a day and you're unable to leave this lord at all times. So you should use yourself to repay this lord. Dmo Xian pulled her into his embrace, letting her delicate body to press on top of his. His words made Yiqing Luo's heart pounded. She thought that she had really been poisoned by a kind of poison named Dmo Xian. All the grievances and unhappiness from before. In the man's gentle words, it had all disappeared. This man was really seductive. Under the centrifuge goose mode. To think that he could even say something like wanting her to repay him with her body. It was even more touching than all the words of love. Between Yiqing Luo's brows there was a warm smile. She buried her head into Dmo Xian's embrace, absorbing the breath from his body, and gave a strong sound. Since Overlord has such a passionate request, I will reluctantly agree to you to repay Overlord's great kindness with my body. Leaning against his chest, there was some slight undulation. It was the sound of a man laughing. Her heart moved. She wanted to see the man's genuine joyful smile on this cold and abstinent face. Chapter 29:19. With this movement, Yiqing Luo's line of sight coincidentally met Dmo Xian's side, a helpless and extremely embarrassed face. Yiqing Luo was stunned and froze. Cough, cough, cough. That person covered his mouth and coughed lightly. His transparent body swayed in the wind. Yiqing Luo's face turned red. Song, old man Song. When did you come out? This person was not someone else, it was old man Song. Old man Song's wrinkled face was full of helplessness. I have always been here, it's just that, in your eyes is the Overlord. Yiqing Luo, it seemed like, when Dmo Xian came out from the black qi, he seemed to be carrying something in his hand. She was so worried that she didn't notice anything else. She only thought, Dmo Xian came out safely. Old man Song must be fine. She didn't expect Dmo Xian was carrying old man Song. Sight, a grown girl really can't be kept at home, my heart really hurts. Old man Song's spirit body floated up, holding his chest and crying out. Yiqing Luo blushed. I am equally concerned about you and Zhou Xian. Old man Song shook his head, indicating that he didn't listen and didn't believe it. This is the old man Song you mentioned? Zhou Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes, sizing up this white-haired old man. With Zhou Xian changing the topic, Yiqing Luo nodded decisively. Yes, he is old man Song, the target of your jealousy. Zhou Xian. It was rare for Zhou Xian's handsome face to show a touch of embarrassment. Old man Song's attention was indeed diverted. Jealousy? Overlord, that kid is jealous of me? Yiqing Luo spread out her hands and complained to old man Song helplessly and fanned the flames. Just because of your smile, his vinegar jar has been overturned. Just because I was worried about you, he got angry and even scolded me. Zhou Xian listened to Yiqing Luo. To be treated as an opponent by the overlord, this old man is really honored. Old man Song's mouth twitched as he smirked twice. No wonder in that mental power. Dizun gave him a dirty look for no reason. Just look at him. At his age. In his current form. What could they use to compete with Zhou Xian? Zhou Xian was still jealous of him. This jealousy was really scary. There's no other way, I'm too outstanding and he's worried that I'll be snatched away. Amidst the teasing, the heat on Yiqing Luo's face decreased a little and her skin thickened a little. Zhou Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes and sneered, someone dares to snatch it? That cool and arrogant attitude was very domineering. However, there was indeed nothing he could say to refute. Who was so tired of living that he dared to snatch Dizun's woman? Stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo glared at Zhou Xian resentfully. This man, no matter when. They were all so confident and domineering. Yiqing Luo turned her gaze towards old man Song. Have you successfully extracted Yoin's mental power? Old man Song's expression turned serious and he didn't tease him anymore. We almost failed. Fortunately, Venerable Sovereign arrived in time. He has already extracted his mental energy and stored it in the Azure Dew bracelet. Heh. A sneer interrupted old man Song's seemingly relaxed tone. Zhou Xian glanced sideways at old man Song and lightly said, this old man, in order to extract Yoin's mental power, he almost lost his spiritual body. Venerable Sovereign. Old man Song's expression turned cold as he emphasized his tone. Chapter 29:20. Little Luo, don't listen to this brat's nonsense. Old man Song laughed dryly. It's not as serious as he said. Well, it's not serious. A certain venerable sovereign answered. But I was almost devoured by his mind power. Old man Song wanted to stop him and retort. In the end he just opened his mouth and lowered his head. Old man Song. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened when she heard Zhou Xian's words. Why do you have to force yourself? Have you ever thought about what I would do if you were to suffer a backlash from the netherine mental energy? Little girl Luo. Old man Song pursed his lips, but he didn't know what to say. Yiqing Luo's chest was in turmoil. She was worried about old man Song and at this moment she was anxious and worried. She clenched her fingers. He knew. The reason why old man Song took such a risk was because of her. Under the situation where the serene Yin could not return to his spirit body, Yin would definitely die. If he wanted to easily deal with the corpse puppets that Dark Palace created in the future, now was the only chance. If Yin was dead, he would not be able to extract Yin's mental strength. Old man Song took this risk for her sake. Something really happened to old man Song. Then Yiqing Luo didn't even dare to imagine the scene of old man Song getting into trouble. Suddenly he felt a surge of warmth in his tightly clenched fists. The man's broad palm covered her small hand. His nimble and slender fingers easily pried open her tightly clenched hands. His strong and muscular arm was also placed across Yiqing Luo's waist. The man's husky and magnetic voice rang out, "It's all in the past." The elegant sandalwood scent from the man's body made Yiqing Luo's flustered and frightened heart gradually calm down. His 5 fingers also slowly loosened. He knows how important he is to you, there won't be a next time. Zhou Xian comforted her in a low voice, holding her hand. His slender fair fingers slowly caressed Yiqing Luo's hand. Under the contrast of that fair skin, Yiqing Luo's palm was covered with blood stains from her fingernails. You are very important to him, so don't do anything that will hurt yourself. Zhou Xian gently caressed the fingerprints on her palm. The man's fingers caressed her gently. There were thin calluses on his fingertips. He caressed her skin. Bring a kind of ticklish touch. Standing by the side, old man Song, who had originally planned to receive Yiqing Luo's love rebuke, saw that Dimo Xian's few words had already extinguished the fire in Yiqing Luo's heart. He was touched and was about to open his mouth to thank Dimo Xian. He knew how to dote on his wife. He was a considerate and respectful man. He was indeed the man that his last Luo had fallen for. However, old man Song's heart was filled with gratitude and satisfaction towards Dimo Xian. It had not even fermented in the bottom of his heart. He received a stare from Dimo Xian. Old man Song was immediately stunned, his face full of confusion. Dimo Xian's gaze turned colder as he narrowed his peach blossom eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold ray. His lips curled into a devilish smile. His thin lips moved and he spat out a few words silently, "Get out of here." Obviously, Dimo Xian did not make any sound at all. However, old man Song clearly felt that overwhelming aura pressing down on him. Old man Song shrunk his neck. He decisively withdrew into the azure dew bracelet with a sway of his figure. In old man Song's heart, 10,000 alpacas were running wildly. This kid spoke up for him. He was simply in a hurry to drive away this third wheel. It turned out that he was jealous again. He just didn't want Luo to talk to him more. Was this really the overlord who was poisoned by the centrifugal worm? Chapter 29-21. Oh right. Yiqing Luo, who was lying in Dimo Xian's arms, suddenly raised her head. Her vision swept around the surroundings and ascertained that this time round, it wasn't because she only had Dimo Xian in her eyes and neglected the others. Where's Yuhan and Yu Nu? Yiqing Luo could distinctly feel that when she asked this question, her expression changed. The arm across his waist tightened a little. She slowly shifted her gaze onto Dimo Xian's face. The man pursed his lips and an unnatural expression flashed across his face. A red light flashed in his eyes. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes. Those two people ran away. Dimo Xian's expression was obviously awkward. Yiqing Luo was shocked. Those two people actually escaped from your hands? Yiqing Luo expressed that she absolutely didn't believe that Yu Han and Yu Nu had such ability. He was agitated by Yiqing Luo's two consecutive shocking sentences. The red glint in Dimo Xian's peach blossom eyes turned incomparably tyrannical. He tightened his arms and pulled the girl into his embrace. A pair of obsidian eyes, like a coquettish mandala, emitted a bewitching charm. Even Yiqing Luo. They were all captivated by his demonic charm. Don't look down on me. The man's low and domineering voice carried a hint of threat. He bent down and touched his nose to hers. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, locked onto her. His breath was too close. Yiqing Luo felt her face heating up and wanted to take a few steps back. However, the man's strong arms were tightly wrapped around her delicate body. Her eyelashes fluttered. If you can't catch them this time, there will be a next time. I didn't underestimate you. You think that this lord intentionally let them escape? Dimo Xian narrowed his eyes. That's not what I meant. Yiqing Luo didn't understand why Dimo Xian was so concerned about this matter. I know you didn't do it on purpose. Then you feel that this lord is not a match for the both of them, so they managed to escape, right? Dimo Xian scoffed coldly. Yiqing Luo. God, this man was just poisoned by the centrifugal goo and forgot about her. Why did it feel like his intelligence was also swallowed by the centrifugal goo? So what if Yuhan and Yu Nu ran away? She didn't say anything. He was just shocked and astonished. Why did she feel that Dimo Xian's reaction was even bigger than hers? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's mind spun as her eyes sparkled brilliantly. She blinked her charming eyes as she raised her head and stared at Dimo Xian's good-looking face. This man, could it be that, do you feel guilty? Because he had promised her that he would capture Yuhan and Yu Nu alive. But in the end he failed to do so. He even let Yuhan and Yu Nu escape. Not only did it damage his dignity as a man in front of her, but it also damaged his bearing as a venerable sovereign. Men were not willing to let their women see their battered and exhausted side. Although Dimo Xian would not be so embarrassed. But standing in his position, two ants that could have been easily squashed to death had run away. And it was in front of his woman. More or less he would feel embarrassed. Therefore, Dimo Xian was bewildered. What are you looking at? Being stared at by Yiqing Luo's dazzling eyes for a while, Dimo Xian's brows creased slightly as he raised his hand and turned her face to one side. Yiqing Luo's little head arched and refused to shift her gaze away. Her pair of charming eyes were curved as she smiled. I'm looking at you. Dmo Xian was praised, but he didn't feel happy at all. Instead, his brows creased tightly. Just as he was about to open his mouth. Chapter 29-22. Dmo Xian frowned. His body's instincts had already driven him to bend down following the young lady's strength. The young lady's pink lips pressed against his. The warm touch was accompanied by a young lady's unique sweet fragrance. Like a warm current, it flowed directly into the depths of his soul. Dmo Xian's body shook violently. Just as he was about to clasp the delicate softness in his arms, turning from guest to host. The young lady moved her lips away, her slender fingers grabbed the man's robe, her face was filled with smiles. This is your reward. The young lady's smile was a little devilish. Her curved eyes revealed a sense of craftiness and quick-wittedness. Dmo Xian's pupils flickered. He raised his hand to hold the wrist in front of his chest, which was so slender that if he used a little strength he would be able to break it. He lowered his eyes, his fine black hair scattered on his handsome face. His thin lips rose as though he was smiling. Reward? My dear Xian is so awesome, of course I have to give you a reward. Yiqing Luo was still circling his neck, smiling as she nodded. Awesome? He repeated again, his thin lips deepened, revealing his clean white teeth. No matter how she looked, there was a sense of danger. As expected. The next moment he had already bent down, his thin lips on her earlobe. His voice was low and husky, extremely charming. Which aspect are you referring to? Awesome? Yiqing Luo's face swooshed, flushed red. She buried her head on his shoulder, not wanting to look at him. This man really couldn't be flirted. His flirting skills were top-notch. She admitted defeat. Dmo Xian gave a low laugh, lowering his eyes to stare at the person in his arms. The young lady's soft touch and the sweet fragrance were all scorching his body. This reaction. As a man he naturally understood. Dmo Xian's deep eyes narrowed, averted his gaze, and as though to change the topic he took the initiative to mention what happened earlier. Those two used the interspatial scroll to escape. Yiqing Luo, who was still unable to control the rising temperature on her face, arched her head and snorted, not really understanding what Dmo Xian said. They came prepared. Their only goal was to kill Yuan and stop him from betraying the Venerable. Dmo Xian raised his hand and pinched Yiqing Luo's cheeks. They used a spatial scroll to carry out spatial teleportation and came to this stretch of forest, attempting to extract all of Serene Yin's spiritual body and consciousness, and bring it back to the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing raised his head. Space scroll? The space scroll is a very risky teleportation technique. Firstly, it requires a space scroll as a magic tool. Secondly, he needed a medium to teleport. As long as these 2 points are met, you can travel through any space at will. Dmo Xian explained, they used the space scroll to travel freely in the Miao tribe. This was also the reason why Dmo Xian was unable to capture the cold ghost maiden alive. Those two people, while Dmo Xian was sending Yiqing Luo off towards the direction of Yuan. Then he activated the space scroll and escaped. Yiqing Luo was already used to the various kinds of strange armaments which appeared in the hands of those Yu. What she was more curious about was, they also wanted to extract Serene Yin's mental power? The Venerable that they mentioned had spent so much effort to nurture such a strong mental power chess piece like Serene Yin, so naturally he wouldn't be willing to part with this power. Dmo Xian nodded. No wonder Yu Han and Yu Nu would bring Serene Yin's spiritual body to the Miao tribe. Now that they have lost Serene Yin, they should be looking for the next one to replace Serene Yin. Chapter 29-23. I hope so. Yiqing Luo caught his fingers and smiled. If that honorable expert didn't let the Dark Nether Palace or the other Nether spirits come to find trouble, then they could settle the goo poison in their bodies with peace of mind. What she was most worried about was, Miao Ji and Miao Yi found a way to cure Dmo Xian. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would take the opportunity to disturb them. However, from the looks of it, the secluded Darkness Palace did not dare to touch her for the time being. The incident today was caused by Yuan manipulating Miao Rongrong and stirring up trouble in the Miao tribe. Apart from the intentions on the surface, in reality it was also a test. To test the relationship between Yiqing Luo and Miao Yi. He was also probing if Dmo Xian had really been poisoned by the parasite. Today, due to a freak combination of factors, Zhou Xian had helped her. Moreover, he said that he was not controlled by any goo worm. Yuji would definitely tell this news to the person behind the scenes of the Dark Nether Palace and that sovereign. The reason why they only knew how to play tricks in the dark was simple. Firstly, it was because they were afraid of being discovered by the peace messengers of the upper realm. Secondly, it was because he feared Zhou Xian. As long as Zhou Xian showed no signs of being poisoned, those people would definitely not dare to act rashly. In Yi Qingluo's heart, she could roughly deduce what the secluded palace or that revered would do in the future. Suddenly, she thought of something and raised her head. He raised his head. Coincidentally, the man ignored her because she was deep in thought for a long time and was about to bend down to tease her. The girl suddenly raised her head. Her eyes met his handsome face. Yi Qingluo's warm pink lips imprinted on Zhou Xian's lower jaw. "You threw yourself at me?" Zhou Xian raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled upwards in delight. Yi Qingluo immediately moved her lips away. "That? Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding." Zhou Xian's gaze deepened. "Did you misunderstand that you took the initiative to throw yourself into my arms? Or misunderstood that you wanted to forcefully kiss me? Or misunderstood that you wanted to pounce on me?" Yi Qingluo. She clenched her fists in shame. How could she be so coincidental? Just about to kiss him? Moreover, listening to Zhou Xian's words. On the contrary, she felt that the accident just now was deliberately planned by him. It was all for the sake of teasing her. Yi Qingluo took a deep breath. She couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Zhou Xian about this so-called misunderstanding. "I want to ask you, do you already know that you have been poisoned by the venomous worm?" The corner of Zhou Xian's lips curled up into a teasing smile as he slightly restrained himself. His eyes flashed and his handsome face also became indifferent. Did Miaoji tell you?" Other than Miaoji, Yi Qingluo couldn't think of anyone else. Zhou Xian nodded. Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips. Her nostrils were filled with the man's scent, as though it had seeped into her skin, wrapping around her everything. "Because I know, so I'm certain that I'm your woman." Yi Qingluo raised her head, her charming eyes staring at his face. "This is the reason why you took action for me." No wonder, right from the start she felt that the current Zhou Xian was somewhat different. He clearly didn't remember her. But it happened again and again just like before. He protected her, comforted her, and said incomparably touching words of love. Because he knew he was poisoned by the centrifugal goo. He knew that he had forgotten, that he had loved her deeply before he was poisoned by the venomous worm. It was guilt. Or responsibility. Driving him to change. Zhou Xian and the young lady's four eyes met. Chapter 29-24. If I don't feel anything, even if I knew you were once my woman, I wouldn't believe it so easily. The man's deep magnetic voice carried a hint of laughter. His slender fingers caressed her cheek. His fingers were gentle with a slight ticklish feeling caressing her skin. "Although I don't remember you, but I know, you are my woman." That warm touch made Yi Qingluo's eyelashes tremble slightly. She raised her eyes, meeting the man's deep as the sea eyes. That gaze became heavier and heavier, like a whirlpool absorbing her soul. Yi Qingluo's lips finally revealed a smile, both her hands tightly wrapped around the man's waist. "You will be able to remember me soon, soon." Zhou Xian's large palm covered the young lady's head as he gently rubbed, listening to the young lady's agitated and excited voice. So soft that his heart seemed to be numb. His brows became extremely gentle. The corners of his lips curled up into a slight smile. Suddenly, this smile froze on the corners of his lips. That handsome as cast face instantly turned pale, almost to the point of being deathly pale. Even on his forehead there were bulging green veins. That pair of originally warm peach blossom eyes was now flickering with a bloodthirsty red. The man's body stiffened, attracted Yi Qingluo's attention. She immediately retreated from Zhou Xian's embrace as she raised her head to look at him. She saw Zhou Xian's face, that green and white face. Big beads of cold sweat rolled down along his forehead. Xian. Xian. Yi Qingluo immediately held on to Zhou Xian in a fluster. What's wrong with you? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Is it the centrifugal parasite acting up?" The man opened his mouth, but that pale lips did not spit out a single word. He forcefully waved away Yiqing Luo's support. That pair of slender hands, at this moment the joints were all green and white. How could Yiqing Luo let this Xian leave alone? She immediately jogged up. "Ah Xian, I'll help you to look for Miaoji to look for Yi. They haven't Gu Xiang." Looking at Xian's painful look, Yiqing Luo's heart was in a tearing pain. Before Yiqing Luo could catch up to Xian, that tall and slender figure that was trying its best to leave suddenly swayed and fell straight down. "Ah Xian." Yiqing Luo's footwork moved as she dashed over swiftly. Just as Xian's head was about to fall onto the ground, he firmly supported him. The man's well-built body fell into her arms just like that. His pale face was devoid of blood. His brows were still tightly knitted, and it was obvious that he was not feeling well. Yiqing Luo's fingers trembled as she gently caressed the man's brows. But her hand just touched the man's skin. The man actually let out a painful groan. Her fingers suddenly froze. "Looks like his love for you has deepened and caused the separation will Gu's backlash." Old Man Song's voice came. "Let Chi take Dizun to the Saintess yard. Don't touch him for the time being." After a pause, Old Man Song reminded, "The smell on your body will also cause the centrifugal Gu to attack even more violently." Yiqing Luo's delicate body stiffened. Looking at Xian, whose face was filled with pain and had lost all blood. Her hands were trembling. At this moment, she didn't even have the right to stay by his side to hold his hand tightly to give him warmth. Chapter 29-25. Old Man Song's words made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes slightly wet. She adjusted her emotions and summoned Chi from the pet space. When she helped Xian onto Chi's back and took a few steps away, Xian's brows were tightly knitted and the veins on his forehead were protruding. His expression finally showed signs of easing. This made Yiqing Luo's heart feel an indescribable feeling. Xian's reaction towards her was bigger. It showed how much Xian loved her. Under the circumstances where he had forgotten about her, he still loved her so much. The more he loved her, the stronger the backlash. She had never doubted Xian's feelings for her. She didn't want to use this method to prove his feelings for her. Looking at Xian's painful look, but she was unable to stay by his side, to endure this pain with him. Her heart was aching more and more. Sacred Maiden Institute. Yiqing Luo had been here once and remembered the approximate location of the Sacred Maiden Institute. One man and one tiger rushed to the room where Xian rested when the centrifugal worm acted up. Chi carefully placed Xian on the bed. She was just about to leave to look for someone in the Sacred Maiden Pavilion. When she pushed the door open, she saw Miaoji and Miao Yi rushing over. When Miaoji saw Yiqing Luo, the grave expression on her face loosened. "I sensed someone entering the Sacred Maiden Institute and guessed that you should be back. Luckily it's really you. Quickly come and take a look." "Ah Xian he. The centrifugal worm is backfiring again." Yiqing Luo saw Miaoji and immediately went up, holding Miaoji's hand as she spoke in an anxious tone. "Don't be anxious." Miaoji took a look at Miao Yi. Miao Yi stretched out her hand and held Yiqing Luo's hand. "Qing Luo, we've been rummaging around the Sacred Maiden Pavilion for a long time and found some clues. Don't be anxious." Yiqing Luo's breath froze as she suddenly held Miao Yi's hand. "There's some clues? Can it cure the worm?" "Don't be anxious. Let Aunt take a look at the Overlord's condition first." Miao Yi could feel Yiqing Luo's body trembling. She sighed softly as she stretched out her arm and wrapped it around Yiqing Luo's shoulder. To be able to make the usually calm and composed Yiqing Luo flustered in the face of danger. Flustered to such a state. Probably in this world only the Overlord could make Yiqing Luo behave like this. Yiqing Luo tried hard to calm herself down. She took a deep breath and shuddered as she moved away. Miaoji quickly walked past Yiqing Luo and walked to the bedside. She lifted Xian's wrist and pushed his sleeve aside. Sure enough, the centrifugal goo has gone berserk. Miaoji's tone was heavy. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath nervously as her body turned soft. She plucked up her courage and turned to look at him. What she saw almost caused her to cry out. On Xian's wrist, that blood line which was like a blood vessel had now become as thick as a vine. Moreover, it was slowly spreading along his wrist to his shoulder. It was a vine. It looked extremely terrifying. It was as if it would explode at any moment. What's going on? He was fine before. When Yiqing Luo saw that completely deformed blood-red vine, the taut string in her brain snapped. Chapter 29-26. Miao Ji put down the ignited tranquilizer incense and raised her eyes to look at Yiqing Luo as she apologized. "Miss Yi, I've acted on my own, I'm sorry." Yiqing Luo was stunned as her eyes looked at Miao Ji in a daze. She knew what Miao Ji meant. Because Zhou Xian had thought deeply about the relationship between them. He had also confirmed the fact that she was his woman. Therefore, for that feeling, that impulse of loving her from the depths of his soul, Zhou Xian did not try to escape or find excuses to deceive himself or others. Instead, he directly accepted his feelings towards Yiqing Luo. Naturally, he relaxed his feelings towards Yiqing Luo. Their love was so deep that it caused the centrifugal goo to go berserk. Qing Luo, and she is also. Miao Yi saw Yiqing Luo not speaking for a long time and immediately opened her mouth, wanting to speak up for Miao Ji. Coincidentally, Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she spoke with a calm expression. "I know you can't bear to see me and Xian quarrel, and can't bear to see Xian leave me because of the centrifugal worm." She pursed her lips and said in a hoarse voice, "I don't mean to blame you." Miao Ji's expression was unprecedentedly heavy. "Even if you don't blame me, I still feel very sorry, because this isn't the only thing I'm sorry for." Looking at Miao Ji's grave expression, Yiqing Luo's fingers trembled slightly. She seemed to have guessed what Miao Ji wanted to say. His face, which had been pretending to be calm, now looked a little pale. "Miss Yi." Miao Ji could tell that Yiqing Luo had already guessed what she was going to say next. She also didn't want to say it at this time. However, there was no way to drag it out any longer. "My time in the Nirvana realm is up." In the end, Miao Ji still spoke her mind. According to the rules of the Miao tribe, after the new saintess inherits the position, I will immediately ascend to the upper realm. Staying here for one more day is already my limit. Yiqing Luo's tightly curled fingers suddenly opened up. His heart also fiercely thumped. As expected, it was this news. Ever since Miao Yi became the saintess, she knew that Miao Ji did not have much time left in the Nirvana realm. He just didn't expect it to be so fast. "I promised you that I would do my best to help the Overlord cure the goo. I really want to help the Overlord personally, but..." Miao Ji looked at Yiqing Luo's expression and felt even more guilty. She endured the guilt and continued. "If Lord Dizun was only poisoned by one kind of parasite, I would be able to cure Lord Dizun within today. However, Lord Dizun has been poisoned by 2 types of venomous insects. Moreover, the venomous techniques of these 2 venomous insects are performed using the ancient venomous techniques of our ancestors. Moreover, they are 2 types of venomous insects that are incompatible with each other. It will be very troublesome to remove them. Not to mention today, even if you give me another 2 days, I'm afraid I can't guarantee that I can resolve these 2 goo at the same time." These words to Yiqing Luo were extremely cruel. But if he were to hide all these and not let Yiqing Luo know, this was even more cruel to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo had the right to know everything. "What you mean is, the parasite in his body. You have no way." Yiqing Luo heard Miao Ji's words for a long time before she opened her mouth bitterly. Her voice was a little hoarse and he could vaguely hear that it was a little nasal.